to be of service, and grateful that our main speaker tonight came here tonight on short notice. So thank you for Tim and AJ that is going to speak tonight. Thank you for that. And I would like to introduce AJ to you as our main speaker for this evening.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you. How are we doing, everyone? My name is AJ, and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, man, I love this program. It saved my life. Absolutely did. The life I have today is nothing that I ever thought would happen for me. You know, like a lot of us, I've suffered a lot of trauma in my life, and it became a great excuse to continue to destroy it. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse. My dad was heavy-handed and yelled and screamed at me all the time. And one of the first memories I have is right around 4 years old. He was mad about something that had nothing to do with me, and he grabbed me by my shirt and by my leg and threw me through the drywall. And I just decided I needed to be afraid all of the time. And so that's kind of, it set the benchmark for the beginning of my character defects and how they were going to play out. My first experience with alcohol was when I was really young. I had an uncle, and he was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And we had these little parties that would happen at my grandmother's house on holidays. And he'd sip us or give us a little sip here and there of beer or whatever mixed drink he was having. When I was about 6 or 7, he had me chug some of it. And of course, I spit it up and it burned my throat and I hated it. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then I had my first spiritual experience. I felt something. And I was like, wow, everything got better immediately. And I waited till everyone was drunk, and I ran around grabbing their drinks and grabbing a sip here and grabbing a sip there. And no one really knew because everyone was pretty tore up. And I said, man, if I could do this more often, my life would be complete. And so I'd wait till everyone was drunk at these little parties, and I would fill up an empty soda bottle, and I would take it home with me. And then I had alcohol, and every once in a while I could drink on it and I could catch a buzz. A few times I got really sick and said I would never do it again, but I remembered how it made me feel. It shut this thing off up here. And so I continued to do that. And I had problems in school at that point. Got myself in lots of trouble. There's fighting and all the other things that we do. My grades tanked. I started hanging around with the kind of people that like to drink and use drugs, or their families did. And I realized I need to do this more often. So I started stealing from my friend's parents' house. Wait till everyone's in bed. I could go hit the liquor cabinet, and life was good. I also tried to steal money and whatnot as well, but I realized people noticed when you took their money. They did not notice when you took some of their alcohol. They would just go buy more. Drugs were a part of my story as well, and I can remember the first time that happened. My grandmother had fallen and broken her leg, and she put one of these pills in her mouth, and she was goofy. I'm like, that is exactly what I need. And so I tried it. And sure enough, I fell in love with that as well. And it just became a part of my life. We were pretty poor people. My mom had to work 2 and 3 jobs just to keep us afloat. My father was no longer in my life. They had gotten a divorce. And it was me teaching myself how to be a grown adult, which did not work out at all. I started hanging out with the kind of people that were breaking into houses and cars. In 7th and 8th grade, I went to a junior high that was, the area was, in Southern California where I lived at, there was gangs here and there, but this particular junior high was known for the gang activity. And I got beat up a couple times. I'd taken my money and that sort of stuff. And there was a handful of guys that said, hey, man, you know, if you want people to leave you alone, you need to handle that. And I didn't know what to do. And so they told me what to do. You got to beat that guy up. And they said, you got to be careful, too, because he's got a lot of friends. And if you beat him up and his friends are there, they're all going to beat you up. So you need to really think about what you're going to do. And I was afraid and scared. I was all these thoughts running through my head. And the bell rang one day after lunch. And that dude ran in the bathroom to use it real quick. And no one else went with him. So this was the first time I was pretty violent with somebody. I ran in there, looked around the corner, and he's at the urinal, his back to me, and I walked up and I just haymakered him in the side of the head. And he fell down, And all of that anger and rage and all the frustration, I just kind of lost my cool, and I grabbed him by the hair and I banged his face off the urinal a handful of times. And I ran out of there. And my friends respected me all of a sudden. I was no longer the loser, the guy that they kind of picked on as well. And I continued to hang out with those guys through junior high and into high school. But at that point, I'd become a liar and a cheat and a thief and a manipulator and someone who justified his terrible behavior. So the only kind of people that are attracted to me are liars, cheats, thieves, manipulators, and justifiers. I had this idea that if I was loyal to people like that, they would be loyal to me. And if I loved them, they would love me. That is not how that works out. I was just a victim of their terrible behavior as well. I met this kid, and he comes from the same kind of family. His mother's an alcoholic and a drug addict. And she was just absent when she was when she was off work. She would come home and just drink to oblivion and do drugs. And she always had a handful of men showing up, and they were also alcoholics and drug addicts. And one of those guys was my friend's stepdad, and he was a biker. And he made it known in certain terms that if we were to come across some things, he would trade those things for alcohol and drugs. And so we started breaking into houses, not full time, but very often. I look back on it now, man, on this side of recovery, and it's amazing to me how I could not see who and what I was. I hated myself, absolutely hated myself, and I couldn't see it for what it was. So we started breaking into houses and cars and stealing things and trading them. And me and my friend, his name was Danny, we got into a lot of trouble. Right around 9th and 10th grade, we had gotten arrested a few times, and we were in front of the judge. And I remember, man, it still has my anxiety go up. The judge said, "You were going to jail." And I was like, oh man, this is for real this time. Because we've been in front of him 3 or 4 times already. And this is God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. There was a Navy recruiter there, and he stood up and said, "Your Honor, I don't think this is a bad kid. I think he's a victim of his circumstances. And we have a program for him, delayed entry program. He can finish high school. He can get into the military. Otherwise, you're going to put him in jail, and he's just going to be a statistic, and you're going to see this guy again and again and again." So I, of course, said yes. I didn't want to go to jail. So I said yes, and they signed me up for that, and things were good. I was staying out of trouble for 2 weeks, and then I found myself in front of that judge again. He says, "You're actually going now." But Petty Officer Kip Corbell was there, and he stood up and said, "Your Honor, again, it's the people he's hanging out with. He's a poor kid, and he's poor, and he doesn't have many friends. All of his friends are terrible people." Like, he just went on this whole thing. And he manipulated the judge, and the judge said, "All right, if you can get him out of here, then absolutely." So they sent me off 30 days later, not the 9.5 months or whatever it was that I was supposed to wait. So that was an eye opener. I was an immature little jerk who didn't understand how the world worked at all, even a little bit. It was explained to me that if I could get through the military and get an honorable discharge, they'd expunge my record. I was like, oh, I can do that. I, in fact, could not do that. I went to boot camp. Wasn't bad. It was an eye opener, that's for sure. And it kind of taught me what being a man is kind of about, and controlling your emotions and these things. They really try and beat that into you. So I go through boot camp, and I get into A school. I was an aviation bosun's mate equipment. I launched aircraft of the flight deck of the USS Independence. And it was a pretty amazing job. But I had to get through A school first. So I show up to A school, and 2 weeks later, we went out in town. I got incredibly drunk. I got in a fight, and I got captain's mast. And they were this is the first time I got in trouble in the military, and I'm 5 months in. And they gave me 90 days of half pay and 90 days of restricted to the barracks. And I could just go to my A school classes. I could go to chow, and then back to the barracks, and that was it. And they watched us too like a hawk. They knew about people like me. I got to A school. Now they've restricted me to the base. I did really well in A school. I wasn't getting myself in that kind of trouble. Not of my own free will, but because they made me hold the line. And after A school, I shipped out to my ship. And that was crazy. I had no idea what being a mature adult was about. And when I first got there, I had a lot of problems. Within the first month, I had my first captain's mast, another alcohol-related incident. And I got 90 days of half pay again and 90 days of restricted to the ship. And it wasn't hard, man. You know, I was used to being in trouble like that. But I was getting in lots of trouble again, you know, lots of fighting, lots of drinking. And I had 3 more captain's masts for alcohol-related incidents. And each time they would just make the punishment a little harder. And each time they threatened to kick me out. But being the manipulator I am, I realized if I worked hard enough and I learned enough about my job, they would have a very hard time replacing me. And that became true. I wasn't working hard because I was a solid human being. I was working hard so I could go out there and do what I wanted. The last time that I got my E4 3 times. I would get it and then I would lose it. And then I'd go 6 or 8 months and the test would come back up. And of course I would pass it. And within a month or 2, I would lose it. And then the list came out for the 4th time and my name was not on there. I was like, oh, they don't want me. So we were at sea one time and I had been in trouble. And there was a guy who didn't like me very much. And he was a 1st or 2nd class petty officer. I don't remember exactly, but it was a long time ago. And, you know, if people outrank you, they can treat you like trash. And so that's pretty much what he did. And one of the times he caught me, I'd been up, because the flight deck's a dangerous place and there's lots of work. If you're not launching aircraft, you're doing maintenance. So there was very little sleep, very little food. You were just going. And this particular time, I'd been up almost 3 days with very little sleep, a few minutes here, a few minutes there. And that guy caught me alone and he just started running his mouth. And I vaguely remember what happened. I could hear him yelling at me, and it kind of sounded like wah, 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 wah. And then I didn't hear anything at all. And then I was standing over him and he was on the ground and his mouth and nose were bloody. And my friends are running down it through the space. That's a compartment in the ship. They're like, no. But it was too late. And I'm like, I don't even, still to this day, don't remember it. And that's when I realized I had a problem with anger. My anger could get me into a lot of trouble. I didn't understand what character defects were or how they worked for a guy like me. So we were in the Gulf War at this time. Our ship had moved over to the Gulf of Oman and we're doing flight ops and stuff. And that's when this particular incident happened. I got myself in a lot of trouble again. The kind of trouble I was getting to in the Navy was fighting, lots of drunken debauchery. One of the times, this is how my common sense doesn't work for a guy like me. We were at a bar, we'd been drinking way too much. I was running my mouth like I do. And a guy had enough of me, but he couldn't get to me. I went to say something to my friend and he threw a beer bottle or a beer mug and it hit me in the side of the mouth, gave me a concussion, knocked the teeth out on the top, and I needed 14 or 18 stitches to put my mouth back together. 3 days later, I was still feeling some type of way about that. So I went back to that bar looking for that guy. And I proceeded to run my mouth. And this time someone hit me in the mouth and knocked all those stitches apart. And the first time when they knocked my teeth out with the beer mug or bottle, I just conned my way out of trouble with it. You know, the surgeon's like, bro, I got to tell someone. And I just played the sob story. It was an accident. I was just standing there, didn't see who did it. I wasn't doing anything wrong. And he kind of bought it. He's like, I'm going to let it go this time, but I don't ever want to see you back here again. And, you know, to his surprise, I was there 3 days later. He's like, I'm not going to let this go. We cannot. I have to tell somebody. You definitely have a problem. And I got restricted to, I thought they were going to kick me out. But the captain's like, and I stood there for 20 minutes and he was just staring daggers at me. And he's like, you know what? I was going to kick you out with a dishonorable discharge and send you to the brig for some time. But once again, your work center shows up with all the people and they tell me what a great guy you are and how you work really hard and you know what you're doing. Well, the captain said, instead of kicking you out, I'm going to give you 90 days of zero pay and 90 days of restricted to the ship. And I'm like, oh, this is easy money. This has happened before and it's not a problem. He said, but your 90 days of being restricted to the ship only counts when we're in port. And if you don't know anything about Navy vessels, they are never in port. I was stuck on the ship for 11 months. But something magical happened. Something amazing happened. There was no alcohol. There was no drug use. There was no crazy behavior. I became really good at what I did. Really, really good. There was an incident where I was decorated for being a good sailor and taking care of a situation. And We'd gone through the Gulf War, and it was a crazy time as well. It was very dangerous. It was a lot more work than I was used to. I mean, it was already a hard job, but when you put yourself in wartime, there's a lot more work involved. And I got this backache, right? I already been to these captain's mass, and I'd seen like the chaplain a bunch of times. He's a psychologist, and he realized I had a problem. So my record reflects that, and I got this backache, and it wouldn't go away, and it got worse and worse and worse. And what I was being told was, "Oh, you're a drug addict and you're an alcoholic. Oh, you're looking for something to use," and all these things, but it wasn't. I was in a lot of pain, and they eventually let me leave with my chief. Like, I needed to have my chief with me to leave the boat to go to medical on base in Yokosuka, Japan. And he'd been there with me 4 different times. And this last time, I was sitting there, and I'm just like, man, I don't know what's going on with me. I feel like I'm dying. And this doctor comes up. He's like, "Hey, man, I just got in today. I heard what was going on. I think I might know what's going on. Can I look you over?" And I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "I'm not on duty or anything, but I just want to take a look." I said, "Sure, man. If you can figure this out, please do." He had me lay down. He looked at me for about a minute, and he goes, "All right, sit up. I know what's going on." So I get up on my feet. He says, "No, sit down." He's like, "You have cancer." I was like, "What?" He's like, "You have cancer. I can see it. And it's stage 4 cancer. It's metastasized." He laid me back on my belly and had me look down. And you could see this lump, this distension on my right side. And sure enough, it was cancer, and it was a deadly one. So that night, they put me on stat. I'm going to have a surgery in the morning. I'm going to leave 2 days after that. They're going to fly me back to San Diego. It's going to be a long medevac. That night, my friends showed up about 9 o'clock at night, and they whisked me out like some sort of Mission Impossible kind of gig. And we escape out. No one catches us. We go out, and we get completely trashed. I got surgery at 7 in the morning. I show up 3 or 4 in the morning, completely hammered, and pass out in the bed. We snuck me back in again. And I remembered them wheeling me out. And this is when I realized, I'm like, I think I might have a problem with alcohol. These people might be right. They're wheeling me out, and the doctor goes, "Stop. Have you been drinking?" And I was like, oh. And he's like, "Dude, you're an idiot." They still wheeled me in. They still gave me surgery. And off I went. Cancer was crazy. I would go in it was a kind of cancer you're not supposed to survive. And it had metastasized to my right kidney, my liver, my lungs, and my brain. And I had a huge tumor in my abdomen, 11 pounds they thought it was. And so I would go in for chemotherapy and radiation for a week and come home for 2 weeks and recover. And this went on for 7 or 8 months. And I remember my oncologist coming in. His name was Dr. Browning. He's a solid individual. The dude was always had a frown on his face. And that's because he dealt with dying people all the time. Dude had a smile on his face. I'm like, ooh, this is really good or really bad. And he walked in, he said, "Hey man, we saved your life." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "The cancer's all but gone. But you do have a bunch of scar tissue in your abdomen and other places, and we need to pull that out. It's going to calcify, it's going to pinch things on, it's going to kill you at some point." So I had a surgery from my crotch to my chest, and it was 12 and a half hours. They lost my pulse and respiration twice. Like, it was one of those surgeries you're going to die from. But the best vascular surgeon on the planet was a friend of my gastroenterologist. He's like, "Hey, I want this guy to sit in. I think he could be some help." And so he did. And that dude saved my life. They replaced a piece of my aorta coming off my right kidney. They saved my right kidney. But the surgery was devastating, and I still have physical problems from it today. I'm a disabled vet because of it. I got a high disability rating because of the problems that I have. And about this point, though, my mental health started taking a really big hit. Some crazy things happened in the military. I saw some things about what we were doing, and it kind of broke me inside. And I started hearing and seeing things that weren't there. I started having crazy thoughts about harming myself and others. And 4 or 5 years into that, I opened up to the VA and let them know what was going on. And I remember this. The lady I was speaking with, she's my therapist. She says, "You need to wait here. I need to go get the psychologist." And I was like, "Ooh." She was like, "No, it's going to be fine." The whole time her jaw hit the floor and her eyes were bugging out of her head, the things I was telling her. And so I was getting ready to leave, and the guy comes in 10 minutes later or so, and he's like, "So why don't you let me know what's going on?" And she said, "It's okay. He's going to help you out. It's not going to be a problem." And I told him what I was seeing and hearing and what my thinking was like. And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "You know what? I need to see you every 2 weeks here, and I need to medicate you." And if you don't show up in 2 weeks, I will send people to come and get you. That's how serious it is for you. And it scared me, and I cried. For the first time in a long time, I cried, and I got all that emotion out. And I followed his direction. I did exactly what he said to do. It took a while to find medication at work and get me stable, but I listened to him and I did what I was told. And that was my first lesson, that there are people I could trust, and that I can't possibly do this on my own. And my life got better. I've been in and out of AA for a few years, working the world's okayest program and getting the world's okayest results. I relapsed daily, then weekly, then monthly, then yearly for 3 or 4 years. And my first wife had decided she didn't want to be with me anymore. I do not blame her. I was a psychopath. But I found another broken woman, and I decided that I needed to love her, and I needed to bring her in my life, and that I was going to somehow protect her and take care of her. So I had about 20 years of sobriety with zero recovery, zero program, and it was the worst time of my entire life. Alcohol had been a solution for a long time, and I no longer had that solution. So I was just dealing with my mental and emotional health, stone cold sober. But I did what was suggested, and I kept going. And we lived the last 10 years that we were together, me and my second wife, we lived in Hawaii, and we had a nice house, and it kept me, there's a lot of work to do there. Paradise is work. I didn't just mow the lawn. I fought the jungle in Hawaii. It was a lot of work, but it kept me moving forward. I wasn't really thinking about the things I was suffering through. I could go out there, I could go beat on things, get all that aggression out. And I thought I was doing well. I thought I was doing great. We sell our house in Hawaii. I come to Vegas, going to find us a new house. And my second wife says, "You're an asshole. I don't love you. You're a jerk. I want a divorce. I'm not coming with you." And for some reason, I decided to be brokenhearted over that and relapse. I went for about 5 months on this relapse, and it immediately turned horrific for me. I was committing felonies again. I was driving drunk, loaded. When I got a DUI, I was driving my little sports car 140 miles an hour, not paying attention, and I whipped right by Highway Patrol. I was like, I am in trouble. And his lights didn't come on at first. He was probably looking at his thing going, how fast was he going? And but I realized I needed to slow down. I'm like, I could run. I'm like, no, he's got my license plate. All right, I got to deal with this. So I had that intuitive thought from God, and I finally listened. And I pulled over, and he shows up a couple minutes later, has to slam the brakes on because he thought I had taken off. And he's like, I clocked you at 126 miles an hour. I'm like, that's not that bad. I was doing 140. And he hurt my feelings. He said things to me that hurt my feelings. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? So off to jail I go, and I spend the night in jail. While I'm in there, though, my first epiphany, it hit me. I can't run my own life. This is the best I have to offer myself. At 52 years old, this is all I can do for me. And I tried AA before, and some of it had stuck, and I realized I truly do have a problem that left to my own devices, this is what I do to myself and others. So I had this little movie play in my head. I truly believe it was my creator, and basically it was me jumping in my car, taking off, hitting a bar, getting hammered, and crashing and killing someone and going to prison. That was what was going to happen next. Or the second part of the film said, you come out of here, you get yourself to a meeting, you shut your mouth and you listen, you find somebody to help you. And so that's what I did. That was my first epiphany. I found a guy who's got long-term recovery. He's a disabled vet himself, and he is just as insane as I was, which is great. I needed that. He's the first man I've ever trusted in my life completely. And working steps with that guy was miraculous. I mean, I'd like to say I was this great sponsee who did all the right things. I was not that guy, man. I tested the boundaries all the time. About 6 or 7 months into it, I made my first choice in using my willpower and taking my life back. I found this woman, and I said, hey, sponsor, I found this woman. We're going to have a relationship. It's going to be great. And he goes, I don't suggest you do that. I said, I got this. It's going to be fine. He stood up, he patted me on the head, and he said, good for you. And he walked on down the thing. He was still my sponsor, but he knew what was about to happen. He's the kind of man that taught me that you need to let your sponsees go face first into the concrete and capitalize on that. And he did. And I used that experience to say, look, I see you're broken. It eventually ended. It was really bad. It went down crazy. And I almost relapsed. I almost beat these two guys up, all stuck in my feelings. My character defects plugged directly back in. My life was completely derailed in one instant. And he said, look, man, you're going to, at one point, get over this heartbreak, and your program's going to plug in, and you're going to learn so much about yourself with this. And he was right. I did. I remember him sitting me down, and he asked me this question. He was like, how many times are you going to date the same woman over and over and over again? And I thought about it. I was like, I do that. I just can't believe how dumb I was and how ignorant to it. Confidently ignorant, he liked to call me. You were confidently ignorant. And he was absolutely right. You know, the guy doesn't pull his punches. He tells me the truth, tells me what I need to hear. I found another guy that I love to this day. He's like my brother. He's my second sponsor. And he also helped me. He helped get me the direction I needed. You know, he helped me to understand that I need to become the type of man that kind, loving, wonderful people would want in their life. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? You know, he told me what he does and how he does it. I went to the central office for H&I. He found me a commitment there. It's a great one. And things started taking off, man. I remember about a year and a half into it, someone called me reliable and accountable, and it floored me because I have never been accountable or reliable in my entire life. And I had to think about it. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I am that today. This is amazing. And I just started having epiphany after epiphany after epiphany. And my program just continued to plug in and plug in. And that's when I realized that I have these character defects. That's what the step work showed me. It showed me that I have shame and abandonment and fear and anger and rage. And those things turned me into a liar, a cheat, a thief, a manipulator, and someone who justifies his terrible behavior. I was such a victim, don't you know? Yeah, I was a victim, all right, of me. Imagine my surprise when I found out I was the villain in my story. You know, I would tell him like, oh, this happened. This person did this. And I found myself here and these terrible things happened. He'd say like, well, why'd you let those people in your life? Why did you go to that place? Why were you doing that thing? And I had zero answers to that. Zero. I'm like, you're absolutely right. Why did I do that? Step work helped me figure that out. It helped me figure that out. He also taught me to have safe boundaries and that I can stand up for myself. And I got this magical word that I didn't know how to use. It's called no. You just tell people no. I got a line in the sand with no. If someone's trying to manipulate me or get me to enable their terrible behavior, my answer is no, no, no. And I'm kind of a jerk about it, man. I'm kind of loud about it because I want everyone around me to realize I am not the one to mess with anymore. And people don't. And something magical happened with no. The people that I have no business having as friends didn't want no part of me because I couldn't be manipulated. The people that I could trust and rely and count on, family I call them today, those people didn't care about no. They understood what no means because they use it themselves. And so today I got 16 people I trust them. If they say, hey man, you have a problem, I go, really, what's the problem? How do I unproblem this thing? And they tell me and I listen. But if it's anyone else outside of those 16 people, I just don't listen. And it was explained to me like this. If I'm not going to ask somebody for their opinion, I should not be listening to their advice. And so I do not. I learned this other skill too through AA and watching people do it. I'm allowed to judge people. I'm not allowed to condemn them. That's where the problem for AJ happens. I start condemning people and I start running this thing through my head and it starts eating my lunch and becomes a problem. Once I learned that, I didn't have many problems with anger because people that act out in that way, it's not personal. It's not a personal attack. In general, it's what they do with everybody. So I realized it's not personal to me. They're hurt people and they hurt people. And I know about that because that's how I am. I'm the one who hurts people. I see that today. I harmed everybody in my life. And then my program came together. It came together. And for a guy like me, my program is simple. I put my creator first before all things in my life. I follow that with a 12-step program and guidance from a sponsor. And I'm a service to others. And everything sits beneath that. My woman, my car, my house, my money, my friends, my family, all of it. Because I could never prioritize those things. I didn't know how to do that. I put those things first in my life and they quickly became unmanageable. And that unmanageability ran me ragged. I did not know how to run my own life. But this program has given me direction where I don't have to run my own life. I just follow the direction of people who've done it before me. I do what they do, and my life has gotten better. I was also explained how relationships work for the first time in my life at 53 years old. He's like, look, man, it's simple. I mean, you go to a bar, you find a woman, you have sex, you're like, I love her, I will save her. And if I'm loyal, she will love me and she will be loyal to me. And they were liars, cheats, thieves, manipulators, and people who justified their terrible behavior. And I could never figure that out. He's like, how about you try this? You build friendship first. And if there's any red flags, you work through them. If you can't work through them, you move on. If you can build friendship with no red flags, you move on to intimacy and you learn to love somebody. And if there's any red flags, you work through them. If you can't, you walk away. And if you can build friendship and intimacy, then you can move on to sexual relations. And it worked. I found the most amazing woman I have ever found in my life. The kind of person that helped me put all of the broken small pieces I couldn't seem to get my hands on and put them back where they belong. That person did that for me. We don't argue about anything. We giggle like kids all day long. It's pretty amazing, man. I really love my life today. You know, it's crazy. I also had an epiphany not too long ago. I have references today. I've never had references in my life. I certainly would put their names out on paper and have someone call them and ask about me. I wouldn't do that. Today I have that. I have a lot of people who do that for me. I got sponsees in my life, which is amazing. You know, my sponsor says this to me. He's like, you're fun to watch. And I didn't understand what he meant like that. But then I got sponsees, and now I understand what he means by that. Sponsees are great, man. You know, some of them do very well right off the bat because they are ready. And I love that, man. I love those people. But I got a couple sponsees that are struggling, and they relapse. And I get to live vicariously through their mistakes, which is amazing to me because it's like mistakes with no consequences. So I get to watch them grow in the program. Yeah, man, that growth is amazing. You know, and I suggest that they do what I do. I don't tell them how the big book works. I don't tell them how the steps are supposed to affect their life. I just tell them, this is what I do, and this is what's been working for me. And if it works for you, use it. If it doesn't, you're going to read that big book, and you're going to come to your own conclusions. And it's been working really well for those people, and I love it. I don't care what color you are, size or shape, sexual orientation. If you want recovery, I am in fact the one to do that. Man, my sponsees call me at 2 a.m. Help, help, help. I will drop what I'm doing, wake up, show up, kicking in doors, guns blazing to help save them if that's what they need. I've never been that guy. My life is good, man. You know, we do all sorts of fun stuff out there. Me and one of my friends, we go out and we shoot guns and have a good time, which is, it dawned on me another epiphany. I'm like, no one would ever put a gun in my hand before. My life is absolutely changing for the better. I really have an amazing life today. They say it'll be a life beyond your wildest dreams. I never dreamed of having people who would love me today. They love me, man. You know, and that was hard in the beginning. That was hard to understand because I didn't love myself. I hated myself. Someone would tell me they love me. I'd be all, ooh, it'd make me feel all weird inside and be running around in my head. It just made me feel terrible because I didn't know how to love people and I didn't know how to accept their love. I hated myself. So as I plugged this step work in, I went from hating myself to disliking myself, and from disliking myself to tolerating myself, and from tolerating myself to liking myself. And today I love myself. And then something magical happened. I was able to love others and let them love me. I had no idea what that was like. And speaking of my woman, she's the first one I've ever been in love with. I didn't realize I had never been in love before. I had no idea. I thought I knew exactly what it was. I had no clue. No clue. And the same thing with the friends and family in my life today. I thought I loved my friends. I did not. I was a liar, a cheat, thief, manipulator, and I justified my terrible behavior towards those people. I don't do that today, man. Honesty regardless of consequence. So I could love myself. That allowed me to love others. And if I can love all of God's creatures, I can love my Creator. And something magical happened when I had that epiphany. Something magical. My life became manageable. I don't remember when it happened. I don't remember how it happened. But today I stand here before you and I know it happened. Yeah, man, I absolutely love the program and everyone in it. You know, I often share in meetings, I love everyone today. And one time a guy got on me, he's like, you can't love everybody. It's not possible. Some people, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, maybe you don't understand what I mean by that. It's not my place to save anybody. It's not my place to get in the way of their life. It's not my place to judge and condemn them. It's not my place to do that. I'm kind and amicable and even friendly sometimes towards everybody out there. which is pretty amazing because anybody could set me off at any time and you might get smacked with a chair. I help manage the 51 Club in Henderson, and sometimes I got to kick people out, but I don't take that personal, man. Even when they're giving me a bunch of FUs and yelling and screaming at me, I'm just like, pack your crap up, get out. And that's the end of it. I don't go home stewing over it. I mean, there was a split second when I felt like smacking the guy with the chair, and it ran through my mind, but I didn't act upon it. And I didn't let it eat my lunch for the next 3 weeks and taking it out on every single person around me. When I talked about my program and what I do, I pray in the morning and meditate. When I first wake up and I'm still laying in bed, I'm speaking to my Creator and I'm asking Him to go along with me today. I ask Him that He puts those experiences before me, that He empowers me to do the work and bestows upon me the wisdom to let go of those results so I might move on to the next good, right thing. And I just fill my days with that. I pray at night, I pray, and then I run a gratitude list, and then I meditate off to sleep. I sleep like a baby most nights. And throughout the day, whatever direction this rotten thing is facing, my rear end seems to follow it. So when I catch my face going the wrong direction, my head turned the wrong direction, I pray about it. I ask for help. And I remember in the beginning, my sponsor was like, you need to pray every day, all day long. When your head is going crazy, you need to pray about it. And I tried it for a couple months, but it was, half and half, whatever. I was like, man, this is a bunch of phony baloney BS, blah, blah, blah. And he looked at me and he goes, stop. Did I ask you how you felt about it? I was like, no. He's like, did I ask you if you would do what I suggest? Well, yeah. And what did you tell me? Yes. And he just looked at me. And I was like, oh, that's how that's supposed to work. Oh, okay. I mean, I needed someone to lead me by the nose in the beginning. I absolutely needed that. And that's what great sponsorship will do. I don't hold grudges against people today. I don't hate them for what they're not or what they are. I love them from a distance if I have to. But I still pray for those people and ask that they find the poison grace that I've happened to find by connecting with my Creator. I want them to have that. Even the crazy girlfriend that I almost relapsed over, man, I had to learn to pray. I had to learn to pray for that girl. God, please help her. She deserves to be sober too. She has amazingly good qualities. And can you please walk with her today and help her figure this out? That's it, man. I do that for the people that have pissed me off and hurt my feelings. I do it for the people that I love. I do it for everybody. I'm a lucky band today. My sponsor is a great man. And like I said, he's the first one I ever learned to trust completely. He's a sick guy. He's got a lot of health problems. He had nowhere to go. So I opened my home to him. And he said yes. For the first time in my life, somebody trusts me with their life, their money, and their car. No one would ever trust me with any of those things. And that guy gives those things freely to me today. Being a service to others is the magical thing that happened for me as well. I ran around doing terrible, horrific things to people in my life. Terrible things. And I could never get beyond them. I felt horrific for having done them. I couldn't look back upon those things without reliving those traumas. By speaking with my Creator, by plugging this 12-step program, being a service to others, that service allows me to do things for people and not to them. And every day when I wake up, man, the slate is wiped clean. I can reflect upon my past without living there. I can reflect upon the future without living there. Both of those things scared me. They scared me. I didn't know how to look at those things. Look at myself in the mirror. What a piece of crap. What a piece of garbage. I remember saying those things to myself. I could not reflect upon that without hurting myself. But that has become the firm bedrock by which I plant my feet today. I know what I am when I drink and use. I know what I am when I don't plug in my 12-step program. And I know what I am when I'm not a service to others. I know the kind of human being I am. And if you're like me, pain's a great motivator. I got sick and tired of getting what I was getting. I was sick and tired of being in miserable amounts of pain. I was so sick and tired of it. The amends process is pretty amazing. I like to share this story sometimes. We got a few minutes. So I'm making my amends, and I tried to make my amends to this guy, and I hurt him pretty bad. I really did. And I was like, hey, man, I apologize. What I did was terrible. He goes, stop. You showed up to my 6-year-old daughter's birthday party. You drank enough alcohol to kill 4 people. You took off all your clothes, ran around naked, and then fought everyone when they tried to get you dressed again. Don't you ever effing call me again. And my sponsor at that time said, well, We think that's valid feelings for what you did. I'm like, yeah, you know. Speaking of getting in trouble, I've been arrested naked 6 times. 6 times. So when I say that I don't have my best interest at heart, that is exactly what I'm talking about. It happened once before I was in the military, 4 times in the military, and 1 more time for good measure after I was in the military. I could never talk about those things. I couldn't talk about the physical abuse or sexual abuse. I couldn't talk about the fighting naked. I couldn't talk about the cancer. I could not talk about any of it. Emotions would well up. I'd get all crazy. I'd cry. I'd rage and get angry and break things and scare everyone. I had these crazy night terrors. I would jump up out of the middle of my sleep, scaring the hell out of whoever I was with, the people in the house. I ran through bedroom doors, right through them. Broken windows out of the house, broken TVs, flailing, going nuts, just scaring the people I'm supposed to protect and love. I don't have night terrors anymore. Every once in a while I have a bad dream, but I'm able to quickly wake up. I get myself out in the living room. I pray and meditate over it. I ask my Creator to come with me and help relieve me of what's going on, help me to see the lesson and what it is I'm being shown. And it works. It took time. I mean, prayer and meditation is like riding a bike. If I just jumped on it one time and was terrible, I'd say, well, that doesn't work. Well, yeah, of course. You only tried it once. How about you put some effort into it and you tried a little more than that? And so I did. And I went from having to pray all day long, hundreds of times in a day for what was going on in my head. Now it's 2 or 3 times. I just got to pray and meditate 2 or 3 times. I do it everywhere. I could be sitting right there and pray and meditate. I could be driving in my car and praying. I pray and meditate with everybody. I ask my Creator to come along with me everywhere I go. So if you're struggling and you don't know what to do, I suggest you reach out to me and I'll share my program with you. I'll suggest that you put your Creator first before all things and that you follow that with a 12-step program and guidance from a sponsor and that you be a service to others because those things worked for me. I got my life back and it's all due to my Creator and the people in this room. I love you guys. Thank you.
Well, let's give AJ another round of applause there. Thank you. Woo! Thank you, AJ. You can tell when somebody's walking in the sunlight of the Spirit, huh? You hear that. So thank you, AJ, for that. And thank you, Tim. Let's give Tim a round of applause for that.